Chris, I wanted to start with you first. Do no harm is such a powerful reminder of the emotional depth that comes from writing what you know. And when a story is so grounded in personal experiences, it's that much more resonant. With your
Mm.
father and wife both being in the healthcare industry, how did their perspectives not only help you shape this narrative, but deepen its authenticity?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So I have my entire life been around the healthcare profession. Just like you said, my dad is a doctor, and my wife is a home health nurse, and they have brought home so many stories about the patient interactions that they've had, their own personal struggles in just maintaining what they need to under the stress and anxiety of that job. And so having kind of unconsciously collected those stories my entire life, when I started writing this story, it kind of just poured out of me. And obviously, the amazing thing about having my dad and my wife around is I could constantly check with them, ensuring that what I was writing wasn't just technically correct. Is this the medication you would administer? Is this how much you would administer? What would you do if you walked in on a patient and this was happening? But also just making sure that the heart behind the nurse character that Harry plays, and his desire and objective in those instances and those patient interactions felt true and authentic. So yeah, they were very much a guiding light and a great resource to constantly come back to and just check with. And also my wife especially always reads the first draft of whatever I write. And she is obviously a nurse, and so her response is always very emotional. Like, does it move me? Does it make me sad? Does it make me scared? And so having her by my side the whole process is invaluable.
This is definitely a film that's going to move people. And speaking of that character, Harry, there's so much complexity in this role and in your performance. And as a society, we often hold healthcare workers to this kind of unrealistic pedestal. But in reality, they're human just like us. They make mistakes, they struggle, they carry the weight of impossible choices. As an actor, for you, it's about finding the truth in that character. How did you find the truth in Sam's truth? And how did you begin to unpack that emotional weight and bring such a nuance to his journey?
Yeah, I think when I first read the script, it's really nice to have a director be the writer. Just the vision can carry through, and
Mm.
it doesn't get lost in translation. But he, what I really related to is like this pressure of being perfect all the time. And I think just as a society, we are walking through this our life, just trying to figure out like, are we doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? And like, but when someone says this is perfect, is that what is actually perfect? And or at the end of the day, really what's perfect for me? But when we talk about healthcare workers whose people's lives are on the line, or can make or break their day in the sense of like a pain or injury that they might have. Uh, this idea of perfection, it's what's really hard is what you're studying in the medical books does not even apply to maybe that one individual that's dealing with
Mm.
something. So how can you get that perfect depending on how you were trained? And when you're not having the resources and being able to be supported by the system, or even having compassion from other people, let alone being overworked, these are the things that, you just have to amplify. For me, being an actor, to try and like amplify what I have gone through, but seeing it on the lens through a nurse's perspective, which I think we don't get to shine a light on, especially in film, and telling a narrative like this. That especially what really drew me to Chris telling the story was the, the way that he was able to capture those visual aspects of it,
Mm.
and with sound design in really interesting ways. I just felt that deservedly so with, I think, a nurse character like this, especially a male nurse. We don't ever get to see that on film.
You brought that weight to your performance. And that's a perfect segue, Chris, to the question that I had for you. But this is such a multi-sensory viewing experience. As a filmmaker, you don't just bring us into Sam's psyche, but you drop us into his shoes. And as he begins to unravel, really feel the weight of everything that he's carrying. I mean this in the best possible way. But then it also feels kind of suffocating. And you feel
Mhm.
that weight so much. How did you approach building that immersive perspective, both visually and emotionally?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and we were just talking about this before our camera started rolling here. Of this is the palette that I have as a storyteller. I'm not a
Mm.
documentarian. I'm not an orator. I'm a filmmaker, and I have at my disposal some really powerful tools. Some of the ones that you just pointed out: sound design, the movement of the camera, the framing, the color, the light. And depending upon how you dial those different things can really elicit a certain kind of emotion in the audience. And in this particular instance, it's stress, it's anxiety, it's that adrenaline
Mm.
shot of
Yeah.
I have to keep moving. I have to keep caring for those around me, and not a chance to catch your breath, which kind of taking it back to the question you asked a moment ago about Harry's performance, I thought that was one thing he did so well, which is remind us of there's not a moment to catch your breath. You just finish interacting with this one patient and then we bring you on to the next one. And so to build atop the amazing performance that he gave me, we used the movement of the camera, oftentimes doing strange and bizarre things with it, twisting it upside down, literally bringing you into his world's just been turned upside down. Nothing subtle about that, right? And so the camera is in those particular instances turned upside down. And then in certain instances, actually my brother was actually the sound designer on this. And I probably conversed with him longer than any other collaborator about how we could use the sound design of this film to really ratchet up that tension, to really remind us what it feels like to have that anxiety pumping through your veins. And one of the compliments I got, which was a large and also like, I'm so sorry, compliment, is I have a friend who frequently experiences panic attacks. And he's like, I don't know what you did sound design wise, but that's what it feels like to have a panic attack. I'm like, all right, well, duly noted. So we worked long and hard to really, in every way possible, draw you into his perspective with every tool that we had at our disposal.
And Harry, I think one of the greatest things about independent filmmaking is a level of collaboration that you don't always get on bigger production. It really creates that space for real discoveries on the day. Were there any things that you undiscovered about this character while filming, and how did kind of that openness on set allow you to take more risk with your performance?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you talk about indie films, you know, you have this like limited resources, which I think is the strength of indie filmmaking. You have to be creative. You have to work together to kind of harness the energy that you can bring to screen that, you know, you might not have the fanciest cameras, the fanciest equipment to capture that. I mean, the things that Chris and the team were able to do that also made me level up and trying to think creatively. Like, you know, our DP Paul Dufio, he comes from a engineering background, and obviously he's also a filmmaker in itself. But this was his first time getting into a narrative space, and the way he was able to build certain equipment from his engineering mind was so neat. He was able to put a camera with 2x4, like, right, and then putting it to capture an interesting shot that you would only get on a crane that would have just filled the whole budget, and none of us would have been able to make the movie. So being around that environment, while also there's film students that were on set, so they had a fresh perspective of people that were like trying to do things the traditional way, but also a new innovative way. And so we had that environment. And as far as an actor and getting into Sam's perspective, there wasn't a time to breathe. So you didn't have time to kind of sit there and think about what your next move was. So you had to just keep moving and really listen to your gut. And hopefully my gut was kind of steering me towards the right direction. But luckily I had this guy who, you know, his enthusiasm every single day, but also his clear direction really allowed the support system to allow us to kind of steer towards the direction that we all kind of wanted to go.
I think, Chris, one of my favorite things about the festival circuit is getting to discover emerging voices like yourself. And there's so many bold, creative decisions that you made with this film, from the distortion of reality to breaking that fourth wall to kind of bending genre conventions. Were there any risks that almost felt impossible to pull off, or moments where kind of you questioned if it would work?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of key cinematic tools and decisions that I made that I kind of had to just go for because we didn't have time to shoot a safer way to do things. So, for example, as you'll see in watching the film, the character of Sam has a number of phone calls with different important characters. And I was trying to decide how I wanted to cover that. And one of the things, like we've been talking about, that I was really bent on doing was throwing you into his shoes and making you feel the pressure that he feels. And so one way that I decided to potentially, risk trying to make that happen was on those phone calls, rather than playing it traditionally, where you just cut to the person on the other end of the line talking like this. I decided to have that person look directly into the camera, hopefully allowing you as the viewer to experience all the more his perspective.
Yeah.
Get that feeling of like, they're waiting on you. They want you to have the answers. They're looking at you, expecting you to know what to do, to have the right answers, to have them right now. Again, from a desire to really ratchet up that tension. But because I had never seen that, it felt like a risk. And we had shot a number of phone calls. There's a number of characters that he converses with on the phone. And the first set of phone calls, we shot it both ways. One looking at the camera, one talking traditionally. But then the schedule just got crunched and we didn't have time to shoot the safe way for all the other ones. So I had to make a decision right then and there on set. Do I want to shoot it the traditional way, or do I want to go for it and just have these characters looking right into the lens? And I'm very thankful that I chose the bolder of the options, only just because
You could feel it, especially when
Yeah.
you could, even the silence, you're just like, you try and fill it. And,
Yep.
and when you could feel it, like they're staring at you,
Mhm.
right? And I think that was such a bold decision, but also within filmmaking and indie filmmaking, you're kind of like, well, this is the best way
This
to
is the
do
time
it.
to do it.
Let's do it.
Yep, yep.
Harry, did you have the opportunity to watch those phone calls? Because you're not in those scenes like directly,
I was
but there's
at,
so
I was at every phone call. I'm there. I'm there with them. And I look away when I'm doing it, so I don't. But I can feel the energy behind it because
Mhm.
I wanted to be there for the other actors to just get a representation of like what I was doing as well. And I don't know if you showed them what I did. You do?
No, oftentimes it was really just kind of, we had just not too recently shot your side of the phone conversation. A lot of it
Yeah.
was muscle memory, you just remembering this is how we played the conversation on set. And yeah, just like you were saying, having you off camera is invaluable, right? Being
Yeah.
able to feed off that energy and find
Yeah.
those moments of freshness, those moments of
Mhm.
authenticity, because the actual person's there, not just a PA.
And just
who's an
support, yeah, and just
Yep.
support. That
Yep.
that was really important for me, and I think us like to make sure we're all supporting each other, whether it be from the crew to even like Kate, like it wasn't catering. I mean, we had we had very limited. It was just like crafties, or like everyone was involved, and
Yes.
that was the cool part about making this film.
100%.
Yeah. As an audience member, it feels just like such an kind of impossible task to answer all those questions. You feel that weight that your character feels. And Harry, you've been such a trailblazer for our community. And so often when I speak to Asian creatives, we talk about how this industry has evolved from getting Asian-led projects made off the ground to breaking stereotypes. And Do No Harm feels like a meaningful step forward where we get diversity on screen, but we don't have to call attention to it. And Sam is also somebody that's really flawed, complex, messy, and deeply human. I know you don't love talking about yourself, but have you had time to reflect on what you've done for our community, and what is your hope for the future of this industry?
I we're in these times where there's so much noise, right? It's just like
Mhm.
constant noise. And even in the films that we're sometimes watching, there's a lot of noise surrounding it, right? And we kind of don't know what we're watching.
Mhm.
My thing right now is like I have to constantly remind myself, just keep making things.
Mhm.
Make things with the people that you believe in, make things with the people that you enjoy being around, make things with people that can teach you something, and then in hopes you can pass on any wisdom that you accumulated throughout the things that kind of were very difficult in your past or very successful in the past. And I think that's the only way I can feel like I'm doing the right thing. Because sometimes, just like Sam, like in the character, like when you're in denial of the thing that you feel you were trained to be so good at, but when life catches up to you, whether it be no sleep, whether it be things that you cannot predict, unpredictable events that happen throughout the day or in our world, you just can hope to like at least have a support system around you, be surrounded by the people that you feel good about making something with
Mm,
with whatever profession it is, specifically in film and television. It's like if you're around that, then I think nothing can really stop you. And for me, like when we're talking about, a community, it's like there's so many different communities, and specifically when we're talking about AAPI community, it's like there's nursing community. It's like it's massive.
yeah.
There's a lot of Filipinos, specifically Filipinos, but like even Chinese, Korean, like it's spread out. But we never get to hear those stories, and especially a flawed character that just makes a mistake. And what do we do with that? What do we do with that? And that was really drew me in, along with Chris's like filmmaking. So it's like beyond that, it's just trying to like get together with other communities as well, and to
Yeah.
make sure that we can make things together so we can find the relatability between just the humanity of all of us.
Mhm. And
Well
then we
said.
get incredible films like this. And Chris, not only do you have this fantastic ensemble leading the project, but the supporting cast also really brings this world to life,
Yeah.
and their performances feel so lived in and authentic. I know you were very intentional about casting lesser known actors in these roles, in part so that audiences might wonder whether or not they've experienced these ailments before. What was that collaboration like on set, working with them, who brought such quiet realism to their roles?
It was wonderful. So that was kind of the joy of this film in the sense of every single day we had kind of a new film in the sense of there's so many different patient visits that happen. And each patient visit we shot over the course of one day. And it was obviously Harry was there each day, but then it was a new cast every single
Yeah.
day. And the really beautiful thing about that, kind of to bring it back around to what we were just talking about a moment ago, is they were bringing their unique perspective, they were bringing their unique voice, they were bringing their unique life experience to the table. And in a lot of ways, the best thing I could do was just get out of the way and let it happen. It's an age-old adage, but 85% to 90% of directing is casting. You cast it right, you kind of just step aside and let them bring themselves to the table. And that's really what you want. You want to see that truth of their lived experience. Of their ailments, both physical as well as emotional and spiritual.
Yeah.
And so, in a lot of ways, it was a dialogue between them before cameras rolled, before we were on set about, where are you coming from and who are you as a person, and how can I, in some instances, tweak a line to make it fit you that much more, or even just approach the blocking in a way that can really help to shine a light on the pain that you're feeling in this particular moment. So a lot of listening, which was beautiful for me as a director because I talk a lot, and one of my favorite things to do is just to come in and listen for a second and really see what they want to bring to the table. And I think that ultimately, if there's any applauding to their performances in those scenes, it comes from what they brought in and the authenticity that they brought to the table.
Yeah, shout out to the younger children too. Their scenes
Mm.
are such so
Oh, yeah.
memorable and such scene stealers. And Harry, you going back to what you were saying earlier about learning, you've also expressed a strong interest in writing and directing. Were there any takeaways that you took from Chris's approach to those roles that you want to carry into your own work?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with the clarity, I think there is so much clarity in Chris's direction and his writing and his intentionality of making sure that he knew what he wanted to say in this film, but also allowed freedom within, with borders. And I think that's like what was really interesting about being in this space where, it is a very, very small film when you talk about budget wise, right? But then on top of that, it's the community he brought together. He brought in film students, he brought in people that, DP that traditionally has never really done narrative, but that's not to say that they can't tell this story. And I think there's this gatekeeping in Hollywood, which is, I think we're missing out on so many interesting ways to tell stories. Yes, there are going to be some quote unquote failures, but I don't think they're failures. We need to build upon things, right?
Yeah.
Something might not make it out to the world as far as like what's traditionally successful, but that allows someone to see and be like, well, I can do it this way. And then that's how Hollywood was built on. It was just like we don't talk about the massive failures that happen in silent film eras, right? And then the transition to talkies. And I think we need to take away the idea of like what is a failure and what is a success. It's more so like that this story reaching to certain people
Yeah.
that really need to hear it? Because when that happens, we're changing the way that we view people, specifically when healthcare workers that can, you can do a drama, you can do a documentary. What really struck me with this particular movie is the fact that it was in a weird way like exciting. There's like adrenaline because you're trying to figure out like how is this guy gonna get out of this situation the whole time. Like you said, it just feels like you're suffocating, but in a way that we're all suffocating in some parts of our lives because we don't know how to deal with it, right?
Mhm.
But when you stop suffocating, when you can just breathe and settle and be grounded, and then you
Yeah.
can move forward.
It's the beauty of art as well, where you can each audience member is going to take something different away from it. And Chris, this has been a 7-year journey from when you started writing it to now getting to make your world premiere. What's been the most surprising part about the experience, and what did you learn?
It's a great question. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, the thing, and this is a lesson I've learned time and again as life has gone on, which is enjoy the journey. It's not about the destination, right? Tonight is our world premiere, premiering at the TCL Chinese Theater in downtown Hollywood. What a glorious place
Yeah.
to premiere the film. It feels so exciting to do that. And it will be momentous and it will be fantastic, but it's going to be gone like that. And if this entire thing was just about that one moment, then I've missed so much. And so for me, in a lot of ways, as the process, went from 1 year to 2 year to 3 years, so on and so forth, I just had to constantly remind myself, I love doing this. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else with my time than working on a story that I care about, that I think matters, that I'm excited to see up on the big screen. And so in a lot of ways, it's just that reminder of enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. Life is happening right now, not on the other side of that problem, not on the other side of that issue, not at the premiere. It's happening right now in this conversation that we're having. And it's just enjoying each of those moments, enjoying the collaboration on a set with a fantastic actor, enjoying the collaboration with an amazing cinematographer, editor. That really has been a lot of what has been just brought home to me and reminded to me time and again throughout this process, which is wonderful.
What an honor also to open the film festival. I really think it sets the bar very high. I got one final question for both of you. I also love that dynamic between Sam and Lean and how they hold space for each other. Who have been the people in your own life who've held space for you in a similar way? And as this film makes its world premiere tonight, what do you hope audiences take away?
Mm.
Well, mine is definitely my wife, Shelby. I've been with her for 20 years and kind of seen my journey from from literally going through readings of self-tapes to being able to premiere a movie at a film festival and open like that. To me, it's like these little things that are big might seem little to other people, but are huge. And I think every step we take, it's like, every decision takes like almost a thousand decisions to make, right? You have to, a thousand things that you have to kind of look at. Your brains, the synapses are just going to figure out if you should eat that bagel or if you shouldn't eat that bagel. So, it's trying to honor those little moments. And to me, it's every these little moments, like even getting here to a film that we did 2 years ago, to be able to do this here is so incredibly exciting. And to echo what Chris has said, it's like, to me, it's just getting a room full of people that have never watched his film or something from him and being like, to discover that. I think that's what's cool. Discover his talent, discover his way of telling a story. And that is what these films are all about, especially the film festival circuit. It's like that's what it's all, discovery and discovery of story, discovery of talent. And that's the exciting. That's what I would love people to take away. And they're gonna get the story that they're gonna get. And that's super, super exciting as we go into the night.
Yeah, I love that question. And I'm going to piggyback off you. Absolutely, my wife has been the person that's really held space for me. I'm a very emotional guy, and she's very patient with my emotions, the ups and downs, and all around.
We're the same.
And so yeah, exactly. The good days and the bad. She's there for it, which is beautiful. And like I mentioned, she's always my first audience for the first script, the first cut, and always holds space in that way. And to answer your other question of what I hope audiences will take away tonight when they watch the film, and whenever anyone watches the film, I was just reminded of a particular moment. We were actually rehearsing a scene between Harry and Rose, who plays Lean in the film. And I was just talking about the tragedy of this scene, where we have these two characters that desperately want to see each other and to be seen by each other. And in this particular instance in the film, they just miss each other. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I was talking about it. And as I was sharing the tragedy of this scene, I started crying as we were just thinking about this. And I wrote the scene, for Pete's sake. Like, I knew what was going to happen in the scene, but the reality and the truth of how we so often don't see each other. And how often we are afraid to be seen by each other. So if anything, I would love for audience members to walk away going, I want to be seen. I feel seen. If they're in the healthcare profession, I feel seen. Just so that those connections, the reminder that we are all humans, that we all need grace, that we can all make mistakes. If those reminders are in some small way brought home to the viewing audience, then I would be very happy. And I feel like we've done our job.